Hey, hey. Sound check. Say hi. Tell me how you think the sound is. Let me know. I'm using the same mic as last week. And in general, people said the sound is better, but it's a little bit quiet. So I've cranked the sound on this. And also, I'm going to be talking louder. It's pretty rare that people ask me to talk louder. I'm usually such a loud person. Did I ever tell you all the story of how I got a job because I was so loud? So basically, when I was at university teaching, I taught in the classroom. I'm adjunct, so I didn't have like a permanent classroom that was all mine. I don't think any professors did at that school. Some of the staff had offices, like proper offices, but we all kind of ran around. Anyway, so I was teaching in this one classroom, and it was next to the office for the online program at the school. And I taught in that classroom, I taught my advanced fashion illustration class, the advanced rendering techniques class. And towards the end of the semester, a woman approached me and she was in charge of the online program for fashion for that university. And she asked me if I was interested in rewriting the the curriculum and doing all the video demos for the online version of that class. And she's like, I've heard you teach all semester and you're a good teacher. I was like, basically, she just heard me teaching through the wall all semester. She never complained though. It's not like she ever came around or sent me an email saying, hey, could you keep it down? Like, she never did. So I had no idea she could hear me. How soundproofing, how soundproofed the walls were, whatever. So, but yeah, so I got hired, like, it was a separate contract from my adjunct stuff to redo that whole class for their online program. So that was hilarious. Like, the things you get because you're loud. And all those elementary school teachers who said I was loud and disruptive and talked too much, haha, that was a really good contract. And that was in 2014. And I did over 50 demos. So that school, they had, the university had a film program, different building, different department, but they had a film program. And so when anybody wanted to shoot demos for an online class for any department, the film school would film it. And so I just went in with my art supplies and everything, and the film school was filming all of my demos for this online course. And I did every single demo in one take each, except one. And all those guys, they were really impressed. They said sometimes they had to like try really hard to stay quiet and not laugh, like bust out laughing in the middle of filming my random stuff. And it actually kind of gave me the confidence to start my YouTube channel the following year. I'm like, these random guys who don't know anything about fashion but clearly enjoyed filming 50 demos with me. Okay, I can do it. I just gotta figure out this camera stuff by myself. All right. So, hi to all the early birds, Ellen, Felicia, Anicia. Good morning. Hello. Um, so before we get to today's topic, which is fashion art versus fashion design, I just want to clarify this post I made in a fit of rage yesterday. So if you follow me on Threads, okay, that's kind of where I post the most regularly. It's like the new Twitter. And I'm going to read it. What really sucks is I have a business idea I want to pursue that I won't because I just know I'll just struggle for a few years before I go bankrupt from it. So I think a lot of people thought that I was talking about this brand that I'm trying to develop. And somebody was even like, oh my God, Zoe, if you can't do it with all your knowledge, how do you expect any of us to? And I get that. And that's a conversation for another day. But I wasn't actually talking about that. I was actually talking about a completely different business idea that I will not be pursuing because I really don't think that I'll make money from it. And by making money, I don't mean like billionaire status is making money. I mean like make any money. Like I really don't think I'll be making any money from it. And to put it succinctly, I wanted to create a design space in LA. I would develop a big space where I would have big cutting tables and industrial machines. I know anybody, like most people who are interested in design and sewing and making things, they have a single needle at home, but they usually don't have the room or the budget to also be buying a cover stitch, an overlock, a buttonholer, a walking foot machine, all these things. And so I wanted to create a design space where I had all these machines that people could come in and use like a gym, basically, where you come in and you use the gym equipment, do your weights, do your treadmill, do your Stairmaster, and then go home. And you pay a monthly fee to come in, use the equipment, work on your project, and go home. And I was going to have some dress forms, some cutting tables. Everyone would have to bring their own toolkit. Like getting involved in like booking out scissors and stuff would be kind of insane. But maybe have some things that people couldn't have, like big rolls of pattern paper, things like that. So that was kind of the basic idea that I had, and maybe potentially like have some live classes in another space, like in the design space, fashion designers gym. It's an idea I like a lot because I like the idea of giving people the opportunity to explore how to make things without investing thousands of dollars in a walking foot machine or a cover stitch. Like cover stitch is good for knit fabrics like this. This is a cover stitch where it looks like overlock on the inside, and then the outside you get a double needle top stitch and it hems your knit fabrics. Walking foot machine is good for heavy duty denim work, leather work, that sort of thing. So I thought it would be interesting, but I have a friend who does this sort of thing for her industry. She doesn't work in fashion. She works for a different design field, and she has this kind of space set up, and she's kind of basically like I've watched her struggle and have her ups and downs. And I don't know, it might be different because there's more fashion industry in LA than her industry in her city. But I would like to do it. And I know what I need in order to do it. I would need a backer. I would need a backer of maybe like an industrial equipment company. Like if Juki were to call me and be like, okay, we'll rent the space and provide you with machines and you run it, maybe. But I don't need to be like treading water that hard. I will just say that I'm kind of amazed at how good my skin looks right now. I wish my skin looked this good in person. I don't know. Like I go through these random bouts where I have adult acne really bad. Like I have a new pimple right here and another one right here and another one right here. Good times. Anyway, moving on. So the topic of today is fashion art and fashion design. And it is in response to a question I got on Friday's video, which is Watch Me Design a Fashion Collection Season 3, Episode 1. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's where I go through my inspiration images and talk you through how I'm going to use stuff and how I find different images inspirational. Because I think a lot of the time, like, there's like a disconnect between how when somebody says, go find inspirational images, and people are like, okay, now how do I use them? And then I literally go through how to use them, you know? And I did say up front that this channel was not going to be about teaching necessarily, but just creating in person. This particular season of Watch Me Design is really about showing and not teaching. But at the same time, I definitely slip into teacher mode sometimes because, yeah, that's just who I am as a person. Anyway, so Janine, who is turning into a very interesting fountain of interesting topics and questions to discuss in future lives. Thanks, Janine. I'm going to read her comment here. Does a brand have to be specific to a certain thing? Could you make an artistic brand that is just built around exploring your creativity and creating all kinds of great designs each season? Expect the unexpected. I mean, they could share similar design concepts like pockets or texture, which would likely come through anyway since the same designer is designing them all. Or you could create one piece, just create one piece instead of manufacturing it, and you can auction off each piece. Okay. Felicia says, you do and it's okay. I don't know what that's in response to. So that was the comment that Janine left. And I wanted to talk about it because it is a very interesting topic. I am actually leaning towards what she said in the last line. You could create one piece instead of manufacturing it and auction off the one piece. I had mentioned before that I kind of wanted to run the production for some of the wearable pieces and then just like have some editorial pieces that I didn't sell, that I just had the one, and maybe I do sell, but it's just literally the one. And then I was thinking about rental, but I think I've kind of ditched the rental idea. I am really leaning towards not manufacturing, but acting like an artist and just doing the one piece per design and really putting a lot of effort into it and selling it as an art piece and not necessarily like production of denim jackets or cocktail dresses or anything like that. Which in essence would make me a fashion artist as opposed to a fashion designer, because art and design are really different things. Okay. I often say, hello, Ananya. Art asks questions and design answers questions. Design offers solutions to our everyday quandaries and questions and problems, whereas art questions more. It presents more questions and makes you think about things. And I think it's a really interesting proposition. I have often also said that fashion design, fashion in general, is the intersection of art and commerce. And so fashion is how you take something creative and you turn it and you meld it with business, and you compromise with business with the creative end and you try to strike that right balance for your brand with how much you compromise business and creativity to create a product that sells and that you can make money off of. And that's fashion, okay? And everything that happens in the fashion world as we know it, whether it's design, marketing, PR, runway, red carpet, bags, makeup, all of that, it is always a compromise between what can be creative but also commercially viable. because you're also always trying to sell as many units as you can. Even the sustainable brands who do these like 50 unit runs, and they're like, we do dead stock. And so we only have enough fabric for 40 pieces of this exact style. And that's commendable and everything. But their goal is to sell out as much as possible and create that excitement for the next iteration, the next vintage fabric that they find that they're going to cut into a style. Okay. It's always about how many you can sell of this one style. Okay. And that's fashion design. I am not all that interested in that. I think one of the first things I ever said on this channel was, what if I didn't produce anything? And because I don't want to produce more crap into the universe that nobody wants. But I do want to explore my creativity and make things, okay? It's always been in my DNA to want to make things. And so what if I made one-offs? What if that's what I did? And like, I've been chewing on that idea, and then Janine, like, I've been chewing on it for a while, and then Janine was like, hey, you could just do that. And I'm like, I had another person just privately email me presenting that idea also, and I'm just like, I don't like this idea. Listen, there's this Japanese woman who made a kimono. And she was already somewhat famous before. I forget if she was like a newscaster or a model or an actor. Hi, Jolene. Yes, it's going to be eventually recorded and posted to the channel, so you can listen to this later. Totally. Driom, hello. Hi. So this Japanese woman, she had somewhat of a celebrity status before. And she made a kimono, and long story short, all the material processes that went into this one single kimono were really interesting, really involved, really creative, and it garnered a lot of press, and she got a lot of publicity out of it. And she showcased it like an art piece in different museums across Japan, and I think also outside of Japan. And I actually follow her on Instagram. But I don't know what happened to her, because you know how Instagram doesn't actually show you stuff from people you follow anymore. They just throw random stuff into your feed. And so I got to go like actively hunt her down now. But she made this, and to be fair, it was an incredible kimono, but it was just one. And it was exciting and interesting. And it made you think about the possibilities of design, of materials. And I'm kind of like, I kind of want to do that. But, you know, with my own creativity and with my own ideas and stuff, but just that platform of like making the one and just making it so spectacular that it's the standalone piece that, so yeah, maybe I do that. But back to Janine's original question, does a brand have to be specific to a certain thing? Can you make a brand that's just built around exploring your creativity and creating all kinds of great designs each season? So you can, and a lot of designers do this, but there's a certain limit, okay? There still has to be, if you want to create a brand and a brand story and a brand strategy, like if you think about the old masters, and in our case, it's not Renaissance painters. The old masters are people who were designing like during the beginning of couture, like Worth, turn of the century, back when Lanvin, Patou, like they were designing, V&A, that sort of thing. They, correct me if I'm wrong, but they weren't thinking about brand strategy. They were just trying to stay true to who they were as designers and to create beautiful things. But you can't always do what worked literally 100 years ago, because the industry is so different now, the whole world is different now. The materials we have available to us, the spread of information, and how we don't all dress alike anymore is one of the main things. Okay? We, if you look at like 20th century fashion history, you look in the beginnings, 10s, 20s, 30s, where there were kind of narrow trends. This is what everybody wore, especially if you go older, if you go like Belle Epoque, Edwardian, Victorian era. There was like a set silhouette, set styles, set ribbon patterns and colors meant things and stuff that people wore. And then as fashion developed, as people started getting more creative with designers, like before people were just kind of making their own clothes, but once like full dressmakers started becoming more designers where they were putting in their creative input instead of just making stuff that other people told them to make, and they started branching out. So by the time you got to the 20s, you had two main silhouettes instead of one. You had the flapper look, narrow, and then you had the robe de style look, which was kind of like flapper plus panniers. But they were both like off the floor, right? A little bit shorter. And then the 30s came, and there was definitely more variety in the silhouettes. And so that by the time you get to the 70s and 80s, there's a huge wide array of silhouettes and styles that you could kind of design into. And so when you studied a lot of designers in the 20s, all this stuff kind of looks similar in terms of silhouette and materials usage because of the limited materials available back then. And then you get to the 70s and you have like Halston, Stephen Burrows, Anne Klein. Like they're all really different from each other because we have all this variety now, and we are constantly wanting new and different things. We want to express our individuality in different ways. And so we seek out the creatives that help us express our creativity more precisely. And so now, 2025, we don't have big sweeping trends that last a long time. We just have a mishmash of micro trends, and for better or for worse. And the good part about that is we all like have a place in fashion. We all have our niche where we can find our people that like to dress like us, that, like the black lipstick thing. Minority of women like wearing black lipstick. People just associate black lipstick with goth. It's not elegant, blah, blah, blah. But there's plenty of people, plenty of women, plenty of people who like wearing black lipstick, and it's not necessarily like how goth can you look. It can be, but some people incorporate it in really elegant ways that is not exactly goth or goth adjacent. They do like black lip glosses and like burgundies that are close to black. Like you can find your fashion and beauty niche everywhere. So that's really wonderful. But then we also have the micro trends, which lead to more shopping and more buying of things and like moving on trend to trend and buying more things increasingly to keep up with all these things. So that's the bad end of things. Okay. So this day and age, you do want to create a brand. Even if it's not super narrow, you do want to create a brand where it's like, this is what I'm about. So creatively, you want to show people, this is what I stand for. This is what I love. Okay? So I often get bored if I have to make the same thing over and over again. So making one-off sounds so up my alley. Girl, same. The whole micro trend situation weirdly means everyone's somehow on trend all the time. One or the other niche fits people. There's a lot of weird overlapping going on for sure. I already have some standalone pieces sketched. All right. Good job. Keep going. So there's that. Like, you do have to create an identity to the most important thing a fashion designer can have is a point of view. If you don't have a distinct point of view, a distinct voice, you're not going to stand out in the industry. It's like, oh, what is she doing this season? I don't know. It's some weird, I don't know. She's doing this thing. Even designers that you think show different stuff every season, if you look at the haute couture level, the priciest luxury brands, ready to wear, they still, even though they play with different silhouettes and different colors, there's a thorough line. That's your brand aesthetic, and those are your house codes. And you become known for this point of view. And this is how people identify you and seek you out and relate to you. And that's how you get repeat customers. Okay. That's just how that works. 150 years ago, you were either the best dressmaker in town or you were the only dressmaker in town. That's really not the case anymore. And so designers have to separate themselves from the sea of people offering clothes by having a distinct point of view that people can find you, relate to, respond to, so that when you have a designer that has this point of view that you admire, when they start presenting new ideas, other people are more open to it because they're like, well, they haven't led me astray before. Look at this new thing they're introducing to my life. What is this? And kind of opens minds, and this is how you build a following. Okay. Bruh, I feel like that's one of my issues why I struggle to get started. Point of view. Yeah. So when you read my book, very like the second chapter, the first chapter is kind of design process overview. And the second chapter, I talk about brand aesthetics, brand DNA, brand values, all these things, who your customer is, what your price point is. These are all part of your point of view. Like, where are you coming from? And what makes you different? What are the things that you believe in that will have your customer, your dream customer, gravitate towards you? That's why I want you all to establish these things before you start designing these collections. Now, you all know why I skipped that one chapter just for this particular project I'm doing right now. I will return to that once I figure things out. But it is important to kind of figure out your brand DNA. And even if you can't fill it all in right now, okay, where it's like, okay, so these are the things I'm certain about. And then because I'm OCD, I would put that all in black. Like, this is really important to me. And then in another color, I would kind of be like, all right, these are the things I would like to incorporate, or these are the things that I need to research more before I can decide, yes, this is what I'm gravitating towards, So, yeah, develop your point of view. Why should we care about you as a whole design house, not just individual items? Because people do not buy individual items, okay? If you think about the things that people buy the most, blue jeans, white t-shirts, okay? How many brands have white t-shirts and blue jeans? Hundreds, okay? But people buy your brand story. People build a trust in you because you have let your brand values known by the kind of quality you pursue, the kind of price point that you try to hit, the transparency you show with your customers on what kind of white t-shirt that they're getting from you, what kind of blue jeans that they're getting from you, the countries you manufacture from, like your company's ethics. Like, people buy all of that when they decide, okay, well, I need a new white t-shirt because all of mine are dingy from sweat. These are the brands I'm going to look because these are the brands that have served me well in the past because of XYZ things. People don't necessarily buy things. They buy who they're coming from. Like, I feel good when I buy from this brand because I know XYZ thing about them. Like, I know I'm getting a great bargain, but not getting like too unethically low that I know there's child labor involved. Okay. Or I know that they get the best cotton from this place and it's sustainable, and or they do organic farming, and that's important to me. Okay. During a time where it seems everything has been done, it's amazing to see brand new innovation. Is it get harder or easier to be original? I think it definitely gets harder to be original because there's just so many people. I do love the fact that there are more creative voices than ever because in some ways, for some certain groups of people, it has become less taboo to pursue a creative field. Like my father's generation, like pursuing art or anything creative, that is like, why don't you sign up for a homeless shelter instead? It would be cheaper. Like that's kind of how it was viewed. Whereas, nowadays, there are definitely people who still think that, but less so. And so people have the freedom to pursue creative fields. So there's more of us out there. Creative fields also are not necessarily fields where you need a university degree. And with the rising costs of college, especially in the US, but I think a lot of places also, people are opting to not go to school and just kind of jump into things and explore. So there are a lot of voices, and they are not all great voices. Okay. I'm not an equal opportunity supporter. Okay. I don't support fast fashion. I don't support poor quality. I don't support, there are a lot of people out there just talk a lot of crap. Like, I don't support everyone. All right. So it's harder because for the consumer, they have to kind of sift through the riffraff. It's harder for designers because we have to kind of become like rise above head and shoulders among people who don't know what the hell they're doing, talking about. There's this social media. I saw it on Reddit and I saw it on Threads where people are talking about what are some luxury brands that have really gone down the tubes. And there are so many responses. And I can't argue with a lot of them, So this feels like we're FaceTiming. All right. Hello. Neo 100. Hello. Okay. So you can build a brand that's just all about you exploring your creativity and creating all kinds of great designs each season. I am aware that there are plenty of designers doing exactly this sort of thing. I think Miss Sohi is one. I think she is wonderful and she's created some really wonderful things. And I enjoy the collections she's created as a guest couturier before. I think that, who am I thinking of? Robert Woon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but his couture collections are really amazing. They are starting to look a tiny bit repetitive. I wish he showed a tiny bit more variety. Miss Sohi also, but I do think that they are establishing their house codes, establishing their point of view because they are new. And so you have to strike that balance between really establishing your aesthetic and teaching people that this is who you're about, these are your house codes, this is your aesthetic, but also show enough variety to be like, we're not a one note. So that balance can be difficult. So that is what they're doing, and I think they're doing great. I think they're really interesting. But I don't think it's a good idea this day and age to just flop around and do whatever. And one of the great things about teaching, Peter Doe and Gentle Monster. Okay, I will give you Peter Doe, but not Gentle Monster. No, we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. So it is still important to establish your brand as in like, what are you focusing on? Like, what kind of woman are you designing for? Like in the case of like Miss Sohi or Robert Woon, like you kind of have to establish that. And it's easier for the designers who are their namesake founders. Like, it's easier for Gianni Versace than it is for Donatella because Gianni Versace designed from his heart and his ideas and concepts. And everyone who came after, like Donatella, she kind of had to stay within the strictures that Gianni Versace set up because people have specific expectations of what they will find at Versace. You know what I mean? So it's different for the founding creative director than it is for following creative directors. Like, if you look at McQueen and you look at the concepts that he explored, if he had stayed alive, or if he was still alive, because he really wasn't that old when he passed on, like, he would have explored new concepts. Given what an explorative designer he was, like, he probably explored a lot more concepts. But when Sarah Burton took over, I mean, she was there. Like, she had been interning for McQueen forever before and like worked her way up the ranks. But she kind of had to stay within the established house codes that McQueen set up. It wasn't very easy for her to start exploring new things outside of the expected purview of the McQueen brand, because people would say, oh, that's not what McQueen is. I think Chanel has changed a lot, though. I mean, Chanel, I don't think has changed. I think Chanel still looks really Chanel. Like, Chanel has always been about like a more boxy silhouette and ease of dressing. Coco Chanel was the first to explore an underwear material as outerwear. Jersey was considered just an underwear thing, and then she started showing it on the outside. It was really about freedom of movement and comfortable clothes and that sort of boxier look. That's why you have the boxy tweed jackets with the simple, like, straight skirt, that sort of thing. Like, you don't see, like, when you see a ball gown from the House of Chanel, it's not like the giant Marie Antoinette style, like the things that John Galliano did either for his house or for Dior, but it's definitely more kind of deflated and easier to move in and lighter because that's still in line with kind of the general aesthetic of Chanel. And, separate from the black and white, the tweed, the camellias, like that sort of thing. It's that whole essence of how she thought women should dress. She talked a lot about things being simpler, but if you actually look at how she dressed, like, she wore a lot of brooches and stuff. Like, her idea of simple is not exactly what Calvin Klein thought was simple. And so all the brooches and the flowers and everything, that's still in line with who she is. What they're going to be doing post Lagerfeld, like Virginie VR, like, they've been wobbling, but I think they're trying to course correct right now. But they still are trying to remain black, white, and pink, and tweed, and camellias, and brooches, and a relaxed silhouette, a boxier silhouette. Like, they're not going to start doing like, Vivienne Westwood style, deconstructed, red tartan ball gowns with the shredded hem. Like, that's just not anything Chanel. So they would not do that. So, yeah, I do want to develop something where it's really about exploring my creativity, but also kind of have some set parameters so that I'm establishing a brand aesthetic and look that people can expect from me and that I want to be known for, that I can be proud to stand in front of, which is why I'm taking my time with establishing my brand. And yeah, that's kind of where I am. But that is the difference between fashion art and fashion design. I am leaning more towards fashion art. But at the same time, if you look at a lot of artists, they have a style also. You look at Mark Rothko paintings. the big color field paintings. Like you kind of recognize them if you look at uh like if you like really deep dive Renaissance painters, like people who like are intense art historians, they'll tell you like the musculature says it's like Michelangelo, and and this kind of lighting means it's like this Renaissance. Like they all have different styles, like you can definitely you know spot check a Picasso or a Cezanne at 100 paces, that sort of thing. So even artists have a distinct style, but that comes from within. I'm not trying to put like squeeze myself into an idea of a brand. I'm trying to distill my biggest creative like things in my mind after like over a decade of changing up my style for each project to show different demonstrations of design principles teaching. Because I could do a junior athleisure line with a lot of day glow and contrast banding and mesh panels and, do something fun like that. I could. And then the next season, I could do velvet burnout evening gowns a la Donna Karan in the 90s. Like, I could do all those things. And I have done those things on a teaching level. And so now I feel like I don't know what my actual voice is in terms of design. So that's what I'm working on. Any questions on fashion art versus fashion design? Do 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 do. Okay, that's it. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so I'm gonna close it up today. Thanks for joining me on today's live, and I hope to see you on Friday for episode 2 of Watch Me Design a Fashion Collection season 3. Doop 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 doop. Bye.